it's Julian. Today I'm going to be talking to you about how to write burial style chord progressions. There's no video out there on the internet talking about how to do this. There's a lot of questions about it. It's actually maybe not as complicated as you think it is. I figured it out, and today I'm going to break it down for you in this video. To go along with this video, I just dropped a new sample pack which is called 10 Burial, Pad, and Bass Chord Progressions Volume 2. The link is right in the top of the description. It's just $10, and what you get is 10 of these pad constructions where you can see we have a chord progression, and then you have the actual pad as well as the bass in audio as well as MIDI format. Plus, this time around, I've included the full project files for each of these. So you can go and work with them, or you can just use the audio and the MIDI and make your own. There's a ton of flexibility here, and I'll play you some of these really quick. These are some of the best that I've ever made. So you can hear super solid stuff. You get, again, the audio of each individual sound, plus the MIDI, plus the full project file and presets, so that you really have everything with these. On top of that, there's also 10 bonus percussion loops that you can use. So you can hear super solid stuff. You pretty much have everything you need to make a nice burial style future garage track. If you guys want to support me, this is a really great way to do it. Plus, you're supporting yourself because you're getting some of the best samples for this style that exist on the market right now. You know, in my opinion, I have not heard a more solid sample pack for these kinds of pads that really gives you what you guys are looking for. So, links at the top of the description. Thank you so much for the support, guys. Every single sale definitely helps keep me going. You know, I don't make a whole lot just off of YouTube, but with these sample packs, I'm able to keep bringing you guys new videos every single day. And yeah, thanks for the support, guys. Let's dive in. So, right here, I have a little construction in front of me. And I'm going to break this down, starting with the actual chord progression. So the progression that you're hearing here is just D sharp minor, F sharp major, A sharp minor, C sharp major. And when you play that like that, you can hear like just those root notes. You know, it's actually pretty simple. Like, music theory wise, like if you're looking at this from the D sharp minor scale, you know, it's pretty basic stuff. If you look up D sharp minor scale right now on Google, all of these notes will be on there. So you have the tools, right? But then what's happening is it's this kind of very like big moving chord progression that feels like it's, you know, already got a lot of emotion to it. And then there's this melody on top. Right, this very like dreamy, kind of wispy melody. And so, basically, you're hearing these two happening together. And it's the relation between those that's basically what's creating the sound. And also, I think what makes it a bit difficult to understand what's happening here, because when you hear this in an actual burial track or in a future garage track, you know, it's easy to think like, oh, this is too hard to make. Like, this must be some super complex chord progression. But really, it's just two simple things coming together. And usually, you're not really going to have more notes than just 2 or like 3 playing at a time. You know, I've tried making these and having like a lot more notes playing, and it tends to get a bit too messy. Like, if you try to add in a fifth and like another octave of the root note, like, it's going to get in the way. So, yeah, just keeping it like, you know, it's like, how much can you say with as little as possible? Like, we're saying a whole lot more with 2 notes here than a lot of times people are saying with 3 or 4 or 5. I think that's really like a big part of it. is the simplicity, and just like, you know, when boiled down to the most basic form, just 2 notes, it still tells a very nice story. Another thing too is that comes out of having like simplicity up here. Like this melody is only 3 notes. You can see it's actually the same note at the beginning as it is at the end. But it's like, you know, why add a 4th note there when instead we could just play with how this is gonna sound if we have that same note, but then there's 2 different root notes, you know? So again, simplicity is actually gonna be better. Now for the sound on this pad, I'm making this actually using a vocal sample. So I'll take off all the processing and just show you kind of what's happening here. So yeah, it's a vocal sample, and it's tuned so that when you play C, it's playing C, like, with the sample, if that makes any sense. Because if you just sing a random note, you know, if your note that's in the sampler is A, then when you play C, you're actually playing A. So you have to make sure you tune this so that C is C, so that you can have, like, it'll actually work well with other instruments. And then what I'm doing here is basically creating an endless loop inside a sampler using the loop. And then the secret is if you turn the loop up and then turn the length and the start time down, you can use this fade. And the fade is what makes it kind of like endlessly loop. You see, as I turn the length and the start time down, we don't get that fade as much. And you can get some cool sounds out of that too. But yeah, and then the first thing here is actually a vocoder. So without it, and then with it. You can see it's just blended in there. What I like about this is it adds this kind of like detuned sort of overtone to it. You know, kind of just makes it a bit more obscured without getting in your face too much. Then we have this flanger, which you can actually ignore. We have this redux, which you can also ignore. And there's a bit of delay, which is on the ping pong mode, so it's giving you some stereo width as well as a bit of reverb. Then it has some saturation. And then this EQ, which is just cutting out like a tiny bit of low end. Now, something that I think people do a lot with these that you don't want to do is you don't want to do like this. Like, a lot of times people want to cut it like up there, you know, and get rid of the low end so it doesn't get in the way of the bass. But you're actually hurting it, because if you listen, there's a lot of like low mid-range there that you really don't want to get rid of. So just cutting out the like bassy bass there like that, that's all you really need to do. And yeah, so that's the pad. So it's actually simpler than you would think. Again, it's easy to listen to these tracks and think that it's so much crazy stuff going on, but actually, you know, it's more working out of its simplicity. And then for the bass line, so this is the exact same chord progression as the pad. It's just these same root notes. We didn't use the top notes, obviously. But then what's happening is it's just jumping between different octaves. Like if I take all these high notes and put them down, you can see, yeah, it's just that same basic chord progression. Even this. Same note. It's just we're using these octaves. And then basically like where you jump, like you see how that's on like an 8th note there? That's gonna sound really nice, like if you combine that with some drums. If we put that with like these loops. See, having that like it'll bounce off of the rim shot and stuff like that. That's what you're going for, basically. And then for the sound on this one, what I've got here is we've actually got 2 layers. So this is a pretty standard respace, but there's a little bit that you can do to it to make it a bit more interesting and just more full sounding. And so the way we're doing this here is with the 2 layers. So I've got one which is just a saw wave with a bunch of unison, right? Like all the way up. And that's nice and like fat and wide. And then we have one which is 2 saw waves detuned, but there's no unison. So this is completely mono. And then when you put these 2 together, you get one really full sounding bass. Because you have one which is doing the best of the unison sound and one which is doing the best of the mono sound, rather than trying to have one that's like you're blending the mono and the unison together. It's better to just layer these and get like one really full thing. And then we have a little bit of amp actually. So here's without that. And then with it. So this is really subtle. It's just blended in there. It adds a bit of fatness in the low end though. I find that it really helps to bring out the low end and the low mids and just make it all a lot more full. Then I actually have a high pass filter cutting out some of the like very low frequencies. And this is something I've talked about on this channel recently, but it's basically just like, you know, we're not really hearing much lower than like 30, 40 hertz. So if you cut that, you can kind of get a bit more of like an airy sound in your bass. And it's not really going to be missing. And then we have the low pass, so here's without it. And then with it. So obviously it's a very crazy bass without it, but then when you use it, you get still that really full low end without all the mid-range and highs. And that's the idea of this bass. It's taking this big fat waveform that's obviously a bit messy in the mids and highs, but it's a lot fatter in the lows than you would get if you didn't do all this stuff, and then taking just those lows. And yeah, so that's gonna be it for this one, guys. I hope you enjoyed. As always, make sure to like this video as well as subscribe, and let me know what you think of this video in the comments. Like I said in the beginning, you can get my 10 burial pad and bass chord progressions volume 2. Link is right in the top of the description. Again, you get a bunch of really solid loops with chord progressions. You have the full MIDI as well as the individual wave files of each sound, plus the project file for each one of these. So you also get the presets, and you can go and turn these into your own tracks. On top of that, I've included 10 really solid bonus percussion loops that you can work with as well. So you really have everything you need to make a really solid track in the style. You know, I just want to create you guys like a really nice resource to work from. This also really helps support me. If you guys enjoyed these videos and you want to get a really good sample pack plus support me, definitely go grab this. You know, I don't make a whole lot just off of YouTube alone, but these sample packs give you a really solid resource. Plus, it's going to really help support me and keep me going. Thank you so much for all the support, guys. I really appreciate it. I love you all, and I will see you tomorrow with another video.